Born in Worcester, Massachusetts on February 8, 1911, Elizabeth Bishop was orphaned after her father died when she was only 18 months old, and her mother became institutionalized due to her mental illness in 1960, never seeing her again. She lived with her maternal grandparents on a farm for a while before her wealthier paternal grandparents won custody and made her live with them in Worcester, Massachusetts. Elizabeth Bishop developed chronic asthma in Worcester that she lived with until her death in 1979. She did not like living with her paternal grandparents, so she was sent to live with her aunt and her husband, Maud Boomer Shepherdson and George Shepherdson. Her aunt was the one who educated her and introduced her to the Victorian poets. She also received not as good of an education than most because of her illness. Lifelong friend and well-known influential poetry writer Maureen Moore influenced a lot of her writing and inspired her to continue along the poetry path. She met some other influential lifelong friends such as Robert Lowell and Randall Jarrell, who also took each other's ideas and influenced each other's writing. After winning several awards throughout her life, she died on October 6, 1979, at the age of 60.
Elizabeth Bishop was often influenced by the events that took place at her farm. Bishop had also lived through the Great Depression, World War I, and World War II. From 1949 to 1950, Bishop was a consultant for the Library of Congress. Bishop had also traveled the world, including a memorable trip to Brazil. During her time in Brazil, Elizabeth Bishop became increasingly interested in the languages and literature of Latin America. She was also influenced by South and Central American poets, including Mexican poet Octavio Paz, as well as other Brazilian poets. Elizabeth Bishop won many awards such as the Pulitzer Prize and considered one of the best poets of the 20th century.
I am in need of music. I am in need of music that would flow over my fretful feeling fingertips, over my bitter-tainted trembling lips, with melody deep, clear, and liquid slow. Oh, for the healing swaying old and low of some song sung to rest the tired dead, a song to fall like water on my head. And over quivering limbs, a dream flushed to glow. There is a magic made by melody, a spell of rest and a quiet breath and cool heart that sinks through fading colors deep to the subiquitous still of the sea, and flows forever in a moon-green pool held in the arms of rhythm and of sleep.
I Am in Need of Music is about a woman who is using the power of music to help her heal her exhausting past. The speaker lets the music flow through her, also bother her soul, as well as it also helps her recover and replenish her mind. The theme of this poem is that music helps an individual clearly see their ambitions. The vivid details help illustrate the power of music and how deeply it can affect your life. The speaker uses alliteration in the first stanza of the poem with the F and T sounds. The speaker does this so that the poem can also flow as if the music is flowing into the speaker's mind. The use of the word bitter tainted reflects her anxiety and stress. Also, the speaker uses simile, fall like water on my head, to represent that the music refreshes her mind.
The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost that their loss is no disaster. Lose something every day, except the fluster of lost store keys, the hour badly spent. The art of losing isn't hard to master. Then practice losing farther, losing faster, places and names and where it was you meant to travel. None of these will bring disaster. I lost my mother's watch, and look, my last or next to last of 3 loved houses went. The art of losing isn't hard to master. I lost 2 cities, lovely ones, and vaster, some realms I owned, 2 rivers, a continent. I missed them, but it wasn't a disaster. Even losing you, the joking voice, a gesture I love, I shan't have lied. It's evident the art of losing's not too hard to master. Though it may look like it, write it like disaster.
One art uses the idea of losing small insignificant things, like a watch or keys, to signify the loss of greater things, like people and homes. The act of losing car keys is compared to losing time, and how in life people get used to losing things. The speaker acts as though losing things doesn't affect them, but the sad tone proves otherwise. And the repetition of the phrase, the art of losing isn't hard to master, is trying to suggest the easiness of losing, but in reality, losing something isn't as easy as it seems. The repetition also makes it seem as though the speaker is hung up on their loss. The poem has an overall easy flow, but has occasional interruptions, such as the joking voice, a gesture I love, and write it. Those interruptions suggest a hardening concern about losing things and contradicts the so-called easiness of it. In One Art, Elizabeth Bishop addresses the universal themes of love and loss.
The fish. I caught a tremendous fish and held him beside the boat, half out of water with my hook fast in a corner of his mouth. He didn't fight. He hadn't fought at all. He hung, a grunting weight, battered and venerable and homely. Here and there, his brown skin hung in strips like ancient wallpaper, and its pattern of darker brown was like wallpaper. Shapes like full-blown roses, stained and lost through age. He was speckled with barnacles, fine rosettes of lime, and infested with tiny white sea lice. And underneath, 2 or 3 rags of green weed hung down, while his gills were breathing in the terrible oxygen, the frightening gills, fresh and crisp with blood that can cut so badly. I thought of the coarse white flesh packed in like feathers, the big bones and the little bones, the dramatic reds and blacks of his shiny entrails, and the pink swim bladder like a big peony. I looked into his eyes, which were far larger than mine, but shallower and yellowed, the irises backed and packed with tarnished tinfoil, seen through the lenses of old, scratched isinglass. They shifted a little, but not to return my stare. It was more like the tipping of an object toward the light. I admired his sullen face, the mechanism of his jaw, and then I saw that from his lower lip, if you could call it a lip, grim, wet, and weapon-like, hung 5 old pieces of fish line, or 4, and a wire leader with the swivel still attached, with all their 5 big hooks grown firmly in his mouth. A green line, frayed at the end where he broke it, 2 heavier lines, and a fine black thread, still crimped from the strain and snap when he broke it, and he got away. Like metals with their ribbons, frayed and wavering, a 5-haired beard of wisdom trailing from his aching jaw. I stared and stared, and victory filled up the little rented boat, from the pool of bilge where oil had spread a rainbow around the rusted engine, to the bailer rusted orange, the sun-cracked thwarts, the oarlocks and their strings, the grunnels until everything was rainbow, rainbow, rainbow. And I let the fish go. Bishop's The Fish is comprised of the speaker's thoughts about catching an uncatchable fish. After catching the fish, the speaker describes the fish by saying, he didn't fight, he hadn't fought at all. Immediately following this, the speaker uses the words battered, venerable, and homely to describe the fish in a way that contradicts their initial statement. The speaker compares the fish to peeling and fading wallpaper in order to illustrate the struggles the fish has been through. The fish appears to accept its defeat in being caught, but seems ashamed. When the speaker looked into the fish's sad eyes, they described the fish's eyes by saying, they shifted a little, but not to return my stare. The speaker also compares the hooks and lines attached to the fish's mouth to metals with their ribbons, as well as a 5-haired beard of wisdom. This displays the speaker's respect and admiration for the fish. The speaker takes in every detail of the fish, and by doing so, creates the fish's life story. The speaker displays extreme pride over catching the admirable fish. However, in the end, the speaker chooses to release the fish. This shows that the speaker values respect and compassion over pride and accomplishment. Bishop uses this beautifully vivid and detailed poem to discuss the importance of empathy and compassion. The fish illustrates the need for love and respect in a world obsessed with accomplishment. Elizabeth Bishop was regarded as one of the most influential poets of the 20th century. However, due to the universal themes addressed in her poetry, Bishop continues to inspire and impact many.